Let's have a look at the key financial features in Business Central. The most common questions we get asked is, does it have a chart of accounts, and how does the bank recons work? That's obviously the two big features or that are sometimes missing in cloud-based accounting systems. And the quick answer is yes to both. With the chart of accounts, it follows a slight different logic to what we're used to in, for example, Pastel Partner, where it's got a main account, sub-account, in the sense that Business Central can have as many levels on the general ledger as you need. So, for example, in this case, I know the numbering sequence is the opposite of what we used to typically. But when Preferred Solutions implements your live system, what we actually do is we create your chart of accounts. So it really is irrelevant what the numbering sequence is here. But what I can do is I can create heading accounts. So you'll see the balance sheet here is created as a heading account. It means no transactions can be posted to it, but I use it as a heading on reports, for example. I can then create assets, and this is now a big in total account. And then you can see at the bottom, I've got 10,990, which is a total assets account. And I've got a formula there. And these formulas we do actually train you when we implement. And this just means it's from account 10,001 to 10,990. So it's going to sum these accounts up. And that's effectively just what's happened. Now you'll notice that all of these are hyphenated, so I can actually click on the either net change or balance column, and it will take me into what we'd call the detailed ledger for posting accounts, obviously only. And in this case, I can see the transactions that make up that balance. So you can see there's two document types, which are invoices. And then I can, for example, if it's a journal entry, which I can see this is, I would be able to, for example, go in and reverse the transaction. On invoices, I'd be able to go look at the value entries, so that's all the affected accounts. I'd be able to drill down into some more detail on that entry. For the totaling accounts, it's just obviously different in the sense that this will now be all of the transactions on all of those accounts that make up that total. What we can do then on top of that on Business Central is I can, on any list, obviously we spoke about edit in Excel, so I could go edit in Excel here, but what I could do is, by the way, you can't edit the balances here, those will be read-only fields, but if you wanted to add accounts or something like that, you can actually do it through Excel. If you then want to go filter this list, so let's say I want to see just my balance sheet, so I could obviously have saved the filter here before, but what I can say is I can say, well, show me the balance sheet accounts only where the balance is not equal to 0. And I've effectively really quickly created my balance sheet view. Now, there are also my traditional reports. So what I can do is I can go run my, let's say, for example, my trial balance. I can decide on how much detail I wanted. And again, there's a little formula that pops up there, so I can enter date formulas. What you can also do is, in Business Central, there is a language for, so let me just preview this report to show you what these reports look like. All reports in Business Central are customizable, and the forms designer we used is either Word or, as in Microsoft Word, or something called RDLC, which is a bit more advanced in terms of database features, but obviously less rich in terms of formatting features. So most of the invoice layouts we typically would do in Word because it's prettier and you can add fancier formatting to it. Whereas RDLC is again more for like a balance sheet or a trial balance, where you'd have a little, the look is less important. Again, all of these things you can send to Excel if you wanted to, and either just the data or data with a layout. Obviously, schedule them to run as well. The other thing that's really cool is you can also go say filter totals. So let's say I want to filter the totals just for my current year. There's a date formula that you can use that we're also training, obviously. And if I go CY, it'll know that it's for the current year. If I go CM, it'll know it's the current month. If I go, and then there's obviously rules. So I can say minus CM2 plus CM, which would then know it's from the start of my current month to the end of my current month. So you don't actually have to go type in the slashes and all that and worry about formatting. You just need to know what the rules are in terms of to those date filters. What you could also do is it also has, if the fields are time sensitive, so for example my posted invoices, you can actually add hours to that as well, and durations. So you could let's say 2 hours, and it'll go for today 2 hours, for example. Those aren't obviously valid in this view, but it's just to show you how the date filters work. So there was all 0 for those filters. If I go current here, I think I just go date filter, go current year again. Go try last year. That's go current year. There's no filter. So just remove that one. Okay. So then, excuse me, my total accounts. What I can then do, obviously, is add new accounts, and that would be more to what you expect. Within Business Central, again, the number series is theoretically irrelevant. It's an alphanumeric code, and then you can code that account in. You can then default your posting methods here for VAT posting groups and the posting types. And this is useful for if you're doing a lot of journals to this account, so that you don't have to obviously manually capture these things every time. That you could default the tax obviously in VAT and posting rules per account. Business Central, just incidentally, also handles exchange rates and exchange rate adjustments, and it also handles intercompany consolidations. We could have a specific conversation about if you need more information. If you want to enter a totaling, if this was a totaling account and not a posting account, so that's the account up here, I could enter the formula for how it totals in that column there. So this is how the chart of account is built and how it works. Incidentally, again, because it's a cloud system, when I go add new, the system actually saves your changes as you work. So for example, let's add account 1090. You'll see that at the top right, it's already saved. So if I got disconnected or power failure, whatever, I would literally only need to go back to what I did last, to the last field. It's not like on-premise ERPs that only save once you click on a save button or close the page. Business Central saves as we go. That obviously does come with a bit of an important nuances in the sense that I've now actually just created those 2 accounts, right? So I would have to, let's just remove these filters because obviously those will both be 0. But I would have to now go and either complete that account I've created or delete that account because I've now created theoretically that accounts. Then let's look at the other big one, which is the payment reconciliation. Now, Business Central does your reconciliation in basically two steps. So what happens is the first thing we do is we go import from our bank statement. Often we are asked at this point, can you do bank feeds? And the answer is yes, if your bank supports it. Business Central does work with Yardley, which is a bank feed system. But in South Africa, what we found is that the banks tend to block that functionality. I think, and I'm speaking the correction, but ABSA has now officially said that they will allow Yardley feeds. But nevertheless, what happens is when you import your bank statement. So you go in here, I've imported it before, but you import bank transactions. This is what will come into the system. So we've got your transaction text, your transaction date, that's off of the bank statement, and the amount that's off the bank statement. Now, what will happen is I can go apply automatically. And this is quite a cool thing because typically in South Africa, we use something called Bank Manager, which is the tool that allows us to map certain text in my transaction text that comes from the bank statement to certain accounts. So in this case, you can see that I've mapped Fabricam Inc. to a debit account of 61500, which is a GL account. I've mapped Worldwide Importers to a vendor account, which is for 40,000. That's the vendor account code. And I've mapped this text 107196 to a vendor, but I haven't assigned a vendor, so let's just assign a vendor. And then let's close this. So I'm not going to run that now because I'm going to go back in here and I'm just going to say apply automatically. Now, where Business Central and Microsoft has done quite a good job for us here, is that they actually went further than just text mapping. So what they do is they scrub a few things out to figure out what could this transaction possibly belong to. So you'll see that I've got a match confidence here on the left, and that is those first two are high because this text has been mapped, so it says text to account mapping. And you'll see that we would have applied those mappings as I've just did. So Worldwide Importers is the customer account that I've mapped that one to, and Graphic Designers is just the vendor account. Sorry, they're both vendor accounts. So I've mapped those texts too. But now what's happened is it's actually mapped the other transactions as well. And it gives me a score, how confident it is about that mapping. So what I can do here, for example, is I can go look at it and I can say accept that application. And the two high ones, I'm going to just go accept because in effect, I could have obviously also done it from this screen here. But I'm pretty sure that, those are fine because that's text that's mapped. This one is not map text. So there's some other thing that made Business Central decide that payment belongs to vendor 30,000. So while we read the screen this is the transaction text here. And this is the applied to text here. So you can see it's applied to vendor 30,000. It's the vendor name. It's applied to document 108198. And at the bottom, it tells us why. So it's medium confidence and it's matched. So the related party. So the related party means there was text that we could match to the account. So the transaction text in this case is 1071898, and the account name is not close to that. So that doesn't match. But the document number, so you look here, so the document number did match exactly to something in our ledgers, which is there's a document number 108198. And that is, and again, if I click here, it'll open the document for me and it shows an invoice by to a vendor, Graphic Institute. So what's now happened is that it's matched based on the transaction text on the entry is exactly the same as a document we have. Then I've got an amount match as well. There's one amount that matches it, and it's with and you'll see that it's for the same customer, so it's Graphic Design Institute, vendor, and then it's within a tolerance. So there's one. So what we can do actually, we can configure a tolerance. So we can say there's a tolerance of 10 Rand or 1 Rand. And this is what that works on. Is it just says there's one transaction within that tolerance and 14 outside. And effectively that's just this invoice, right? So it's now matched it to based on the text, the document number and the amount. And that's why we've got a medium confidence. And at this point, we can either accept or remove it or apply manually. So I'm going to say, okay, no, that's cool. That has to be correct. So I accept it, and I can close this page. Then I can see there's a low confidence here. And again, we can do the same interrogation now. So in this case, it's not found related party text. It's not found document number, but it found only one amount that is exactly the same and it's for trade research. So it's allocated to that invoice because it's the exact same amount as this. What I can see here is that the customer made a mistake when they entered the transaction text and they dropped the P off of my invoice number. And they've also changed that to a 2 instead of a 3. So if I wanted to, not that that's necessarily a good idea, I could go obviously change that and correct it, and that'll then give me a medium confidence. Obviously, that's not really great because now it won't match my bank statement anymore, right? So I'm just going to go change that back. But again, from a user now, that's obviously something the computer can't necessarily know. But from a user looking at this, it's quite clear what happened there. So I can then accept it. Sorry, I forgot to accept it. So I can actually accept it from the screen as well, like I said earlier, and move on to next. So this is how Business Central then allows us to import these payments from the bank statement, allocate it to the accounts that they belong to, and post them to post the physical payments. And payments could be, it mustn't just think of it, we mustn't just think of it as a payment to a vendor, but that could be a payment from a customer or a payment of an expense. Then the next step after that would be to do the actual reconciliation, and that's where you go to the bank account statement. And sorry, it's not where we go. Reload the page. Let's get my menus back. We can then go do our recon. Just go search for it here. So bank account reconciliations, and from here we would go import the same bank statement and just allocate and match what we have on our side with what is on the bank statement. So this is the two-step bank reconciliation process, where it would then show you the bank statement lines and the bank account ledger entries that we would then match to, right? So again, the Business Central gives us that extra step to import, allocate automatically, and then later, obviously, we'd recon that journal. The other reports that are standard within finance can all be viewed under my role center. So if I go to, go back to the role center here. So I just click on my company name. You'll see that there I've got my most common reports. I've got vendor reports, aged, in this case, aged customer statements. My VAT reports are here. So these are kind of how the role center works. I've got my trial balance. And if you do cost accounting, you can run those reports here as well. And obviously, Business Central also comes with a full fixed assets module. It is also integrated and posts directly off of things like, if you buy it, you can buy from a purchase order, create a fixed asset and acquire it. And then you can sell it via sales orders again. The other reports that are in the financial system can all be viewed under what we call the system tree or the Go Explore, just to show you. So I've got my finance module here, and under each sections there, I would have my reports. So I've got my financial statements, and this is where you find things like, your balance sheet, your income statement, and so forth. So if you wanted to still have so I have to pick from the day picker. If you still want to have that traditional type reports, you could still go run that. Then also add your own budgets, and you can have as many budgets as you need. So you can have standard budget, forecast, stretch, revise, and so forth. So this is typically what these standard reports would look like. And again, what's quite interesting about this is that these reports could also be scheduled to run, so that every morning you can just come in, and on your role center you'll have. So I'm just scrolling down here, letting it load as we go. You'll have your report inbox, and all the scheduled reports will sit there. So if you want a balance sheet every day or income statement every day, you don't actually have to go and run it manually. You can just schedule it to run, and Business Central will put it into your report inbox. The other really big thing that we've spoken about is cash flow and some AI here. So this cash flow statement you see here is run entirely by Business Central's machine learning and minor configuration around when you pay tax, for example. And this will do things like payments, expected payments from your customers. So if I go into a sales quote, for example, Business Central will look at how this, so this is the quote we did from Alicia. Business Central will obviously look at the terms, the payment terms of this customer. Let's just add a quote to a customer that has more history, because obviously Preferred Solutions in this scenario is a brand new customer. So I'm going to just quickly pick, let's say, trade research. Let's just sell this basin for vanity, one-off. And what will happen is Business Central will actually now vet this vendor, sorry, this customer, and figure out when are we likely to get our payment, and will then automatically, when we make an order for this, plonk that onto our cash flow for us. So it's not just the terms that is important, but it also is a payment prediction that goes with this customer and based on how they pay. So if they always pay us earlier or later, Business Central will start to expect that money's earlier or later, depending on the customer. Okay, so then above this, I've got how the system typically would report. So these are some standard widgets that you can put on your role centers, and you can again change that. So that's now business performance by month, week, day, year, quarter, and this shows me my top 5 customers. This is finance performance. Again, I can set the date range. And there are obviously other charts that we can select as well. So this is the cash cycle. We can do cash flow or income expense. And these are just standard ones. Obviously, we can add our own. And then I've got a list. So on each of my master file records, I don't know if you've noticed it before, but I can actually favorite them. So I can have favorite GL accounts or favorite vendor accounts, which is nice. So, for example, your cash accounts, your banking accounts, you can favorite and then just quickly have access to them on your role center. That covers what I want to cover for finance.